This is a really big computer. What we're looking at is a Gateway 2000 full-size tower, and when we say full-size, it is full-size. It's almost absurdly huge. And best I can tell, this is a 4666 megahertz, at least what the badge says. However, there are some sneaky suspicion this machine has been upgraded. So to be clear, I do not know what components or parts are in this machine. It actually came from the IT recycling bin at work, where a coworker was nice enough to say like, "Hey, maybe Rick wants this," and I'm like, "Absolutely, I am a hoarder," and well, I shouldn't say that, but I like to collect things. Let's just say that. And this machine is right up my alley, but of course it is just ginormous. I will put the size comparison versus some normal objects and maybe some non-normal objects to get an idea on how large this tower really is, because it is just a behemoth. When we say full-size tower, we mean full-size tower. So let's go on a journey of discovery together, where we open this puppy up and take a look at what's inside, because I do not know. I know that it has been selectively upgraded through the years, and it was a home-use computer, so someone used this of this size for home for reasons. But again, I do not know what parts or components are in there, so let's open it up and see what we find. Welcome back to Rick's Random Retro, where we always reach for the sky. Now, challenge number one with filming a tower of this magnitude or size is the problem keeping it in frame. I will do the best I can, but I don't have enough space almost to film a tower of this size. It is a little funny. But it's still a striking tower. I have to say that I'm a big fan of the Gateway design from this era. I like Gateway towers in general. But on the front here, we have an assortment of drive bays. And right now we have a 525 floppy drive, 3.5, and a CD-ROM drive that's been added after, I think. I don't think this machine shipped with that. We still have a blank plate in case we want another drive. And we also have two actual blank plates here for 3.5-inch drives. There could be a hard drive in there too. A lovely 90s or early 90s style intake here. We do have the classic Gateway squishy power button here, and a turbo button actually, and a reset, and then a lock key. So let's spin around and take a look at the back. On the back we also have quite the assortment of ports here. I do like the fact that it says Gateway 2000 model number tower on the back here. In case you had any question on what model number this was, this is tower. But yeah, it was manufactured in 1993, in February of 1993, so that gives you an idea here. And we can immediately see that this is an AT style with the AT style keyboard connector. There's no PS2 for the mouse at all, and actually has a COM port here for that, and it actually has written mouse on the side there. COM2, parallel port, and now might get a little interesting here. We have a network card, we have a modem, a sound card obviously on here, so this machine seems to have full multimedia capabilities, and then a video card. So I do not know what actual parts are in there, but we'll take a little closer look once we open it up. Speaking of opening up, this thing has definitely been opened up before. We have several screws missing, which is definitely not uncommon for you know, home computers. I think all of us were taking things out and putting things back in, and some of my machines had the areas around where the screw goes in almost worn down to nothing because I'd open it so many times. I think this one is the, yep. Perfect. It's got the pretty basic design where the case will actually slip off, but it's a unique challenge with the size of this case. I keep referring back to that, but I don't think I can overstate how enormously huge this case is. I think this thing should, yep, the whole kit and caboodle here. See if I can lift off this equivalent of a car hood in size here. It's hilariously huge. And in case you needed some room for expansion, well, here you go. You could fit a small New York City apartment in here, I think. There is a lot of empty space, unused space, and tons of stuff. Let's take a closer look. We're down in the bowels of the bottom section of this tower, and I think no huge surprises here, but let's take a look at what cards are in here. Definitely is dirty, but that's kind of what you expect from a home use computer like this, right? They just usually aren't opened and cleaned up. But let's take some of the cards out and see what we're dealing with. Let's start with the sound card, which looks like a pretty standard sound blaster. Of course, it's got the CD audio cable, which is like also hilariously long to be able to reach down to the bowels of this case. I'm not sure if this particular card has ever been out. Maybe it has. Again, I know that this machine was selectively upgraded throughout the years. We do have an ISO sound card, which looks like a, let's see what this is a Sound Blaster CT4170, which I have to look up what the model number is. I think it's pretty standard Sound Blaster 16 of some variety. I think it's a Vibra, but maybe, yeah, Vibra 16XV, so very much a kind of typical home consumer used sound card at the time. I do believe it has actual OPL on there, but that's a pretty generic sound card for the era. We have our modem down here, which we will take out, but we don't really care about modems much anymore, of course, but a common staple for the machines of the time. Let's see if I can get it out of here. It's actually an ISA slot modem even. It's a modem. Huzzah! Looks like a, I don't even know what brand it is, USI. Cheyenne Computer Center. That's probably where it came from, or at least resold, but it's a modem, huzzah. We have something I would say is a little surprising. I wouldn't expect to see that in machines of the time, but that's why probably this was upgraded later or used with a different setup, is a network card, or an actual Ethernet card. That seems somewhat unusual. This is definitely newer. Yeah, we have definitely a newer Netgear network card here. Network Bay Networks. That's a cool logo though. A close up on that one, but that is actually a pretty cool logo. I don't remember where that's from, but yep, Netgear network card. Now we come to the one that probably everyone's interested in, that's the video card. And again, I think it's just temper expectations here. We're not going to find some super rare card. There were many pack-in video cards sold with these kind of machines. And sure enough, we have a 1996 ATI Rage 2 Plus. I would say that's a very typical Rage 2 Plus DVD even. Non-upgradable. Maybe we'll be the bad boy and upgrade this one, we'll see, but you know, looks like it's from Cheyenne Computer Center as well, that's where it came from. But yeah, pretty standard card, I would say, from the era. Of course, PCI, that's the only PCI, it's the only slot on here. There is no AGP card. This is not a Super Socket 7 board. It looks like a standard Socket 7. We'll get to that point, or Socket 5. We'll take a look here once we get to the processor, but yeah, just a standard ATI Rage 2 DVD card, more than a fine card for the time. We're gonna take out some of the cables here so we get a little space. As I said, it's your typical drives of the era, but I would say this mounting and this power supply looks interesting because it looks to be, I'm not sure if someone can correct me, maybe this is a proprietary design of this power supply, but it looks really interesting. I will say it does not, okay, yeah, there's a AT power connector at the front here, but so it's mounted like sideways, if that even makes sense. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it is a huge chunk. Might be able to extract that, but we can see the power cable here for the AT runs all the way to the front with that delicious mechanical switch. So I guess I don't even know if it works or not, but we'll have to assume it does. We'll find out. Otherwise, yes, we did have, let's scoot these around. We do have those drives in here with the 3.5 525 and the CD-ROM drive all accounted for here. Maybe we'll just extract those as well and give them a good blowing out with a blower outside because, yeah, it's pretty dusty, getting pretty dusty here already. But maybe let's take that motherboard out and take a look because I'm really curious on that processor. So what we have here appears to be a AMD-based motherboard with the AMD 645 chipset. I don't really know, I can't really see any model numbers here. I'll have to scope around and see, maybe I'll throw that on the screen. There's not a lot of identifying marks on here at all. Looks like we do have a socket 7. Let's see, I don't see any informational stuff unless they put a sticker on top of it. The same computer place, just it was tested. There are really no identifying marks on this motherboard at all that I can tell. I may have to just do a little research on this one. In that case, I will add in a section here where I talk about what it actually is. But yeah, AMD motherboard socket 7 of some variety. Let's see if we can get that processor off, or that cooler off here in one way or another. And and see how bad it's on there. It actually came off pretty easily, actually. Many-year-old cake on dust. So let's see what we got in here for a processor. Looks like a K6 200. See if we can maybe get that processor out there and clean up a little bit. Definitely socket 7 dude here. Get something to wipe that off with quick. Let's take another look here and see what we got. And the K6 200. So yeah, this would have been your kind of Pentium 1 200 class machine, or thereabouts. That should make it a very, very nice like DOS machine and Windows 95 machine. Definitely has been upgraded because based on the original gateway here, this would have been a 4666. So this machine has definitely seen some upgrades, and I'm assuming the entire motherboard, because the socket 7 would not have supported a 486. That would have been an older platform, so we'll put this through its paces here later once we clean the machine up and put it back together. But so we're looking at a 200 megahertz K6 processor underpinning this whole machine and making it a very nice machine, actually. I'm going to try and clean this this thing a little more. I'm going to actually extract the power supply from the case so we can blow that out as well, which would necessitate unplugging these power cables I completely missed here. Well then, that was a thing. So I had to basically detach a whole bunch of stuff, including the front panel, which is attached with screws, everyone. Yeah, there was like tons of screws. There's the screw in the front here, or a couple screws to get the power connector out, because with with AT style connectors, of course, it connects all the way back to the power supply, which is what this Doohickey is doing here. So we need to feed that back to get the power supply out. And of course, here's the cabling mess that comes with the front of the case for all the buttons and everything. So, but it gives us the opportunity to kind of give this a little bit of a clean. I'll probably take it to the sink and wash it off and everything, because it is definitely on the dirty side. But yeah, let's see the interesting, almost like sound dampening paint. Interesting. Anyway, it's definitely on the dirty side. There's been spiders and cobwebs and rubber bands flying out of this thing left and right. But there's like a billion screws, because it was back when cases weren't exactly thinking about the ergonomics of getting into and out of the case. But it's getting more and more disassembled here now, looking like a T800 here from Terminator pretty soon. But I will take the power supply out so we can clean that as well. I just want to kind of get everything a nice little, not necessarily scrub, but at least blow it out with a blower. Just get some of the worst of the cobwebs out, because I'm getting very dirty handling this. I doubt this has really ever been cleaned, which is kind of to be expected. But let's get that power supply out at least. Kerblang! And this is where I talk about how the design of this is a little odd, because it has a very strange shape, and it seems to me, at least before the ATX standard came around, little power supplies have all kinds of weird shapes and sizes, but this is a Powertronic from 1993, so definitely is the original power supply, although the rest of the machine was upgraded. This power supply has not been cleaned or touched for a long time, so we'll see what we can do about that, because that is pretty gnarly like everything else in these old machines. It's like a part of this hobby now, is just encountering dusty and dirty machines. Now this is turning into just a remaining skeleton here, skeletal structure here for this machine. There's this extra drive cage that's holding it all together. And it's so tall that if you were to take all these other supporting pieces out, that would, well, we'll probably cause the whole tower to collapse. So got most of it taken out here. I'm able to take the drives out as well, and then give everything a nice little cleanup. And then go through the parts and put it back together and use it as a computer. Ta-da! Okay, just a battlefield of parts here. It's just, turns out when you take apart a tower, it's just like a small skyscraper, there's a lot of extra parts coming out and everything. So, yeah, I'm going to give all this stuff here a clean up, show some of it, but a lot of it is just the typical nitty-gritty of cleaning things out. We'll take a look at the parts and put them back in again. But, yeah, let's give this a clean and put it back together. Now, with everything taken apart and cleaned up, let's take a real quick look at some of the parts. The video card then is an ATI Rate 2 Plus DVD with 4 MB of video on board. While this does support some actual 3D acceleration that we'll take a look at later, it's not very good at it, to be honest. Completely overshadowed by the wildly successful 3dFX Voodoo cards, for good reason, it does have some nifty things going for it. Great image quality coupled with built-in MPEG decoding makes this a nice option as a base video card for a machine from this era, especially if you avoid those accelerated games. Like we saw earlier, the sound card is a favorite of many system builders at the time, a Sound Blaster Vibra. A lesser model at that, sadly, and while some of the Vibra cards did feature genuine Yamaha OPL chips, this is not one of those. Instead, it uses a cost-cut and baked-in solution from Kraden themselves, which side-by-side does not exactly sound great. But at the same time, compatibility is great, and the sound it cranks out is, if nothing else, very nostalgic. At least for me. From what I could find, this model of Vibra could also be called the Sound Blaster 16 PMP, and it actually uses the driver CD. That said, it does just work in Windows and DOS, so I'll give it that. The computer didn't come with a hard drive, which is to be expected for a recycled machine. I had plans to use this Seagate drive, but unfortunately it was giving me a lot of problems in testing, so instead we'll be switching to this Quantum Fireball with the very nice Apple logo on it. It's 1GB in size, so while it's period accurate to the rest of the machine, that doesn't leave us a ton of space. But that's what I happen to have on hand, so that's what we'll use. Since this motherboard supports both kinds of memory slots, I figured let's consolidate and switch from the EDO style sticks to the newer SIM model. The total capacity should remain the same at 32 MB. We have all our parts and we're ready to go, so it's time for a montage. Alright, with everything put back together, we have the first attempted power on of this behemoth. Let's see what we get when we hit the power button, if anything at all. Ooh, it just whirred to life, so that's a good sign. See if we have any video output, I'm not sure. One of those fans does not sound good right now, though. Yeah. First power on, not a great success. We have some indicator lights on, so we have to check all the cabling and make sure that it is correctly plugged in. But It did boot up, sort of. But yeah, we're not getting post or anything. It's just stuck in there. So I'll have to fiddle around with this and see what's going on. Okay, the computer is now working. Turns out it was just this stick of memory that I tried to use instead of the smaller ones, and they seem to be working fine. I put them back in. Figure I could consolidate, but no such luck. So anyway, this was the culprit. Put everything back in, and it's booting just fine now. It seems like everything's detected just dandy, and we have a working machine now, in theory. So I'm going to do something about that hilariously noisy power supply fan. I think it just needs some lubrication. It sounds pretty gnarly right now. So I'll take care of that, and then we'll get Windows loaded up on this thing, and DOS, and all the good stuff. We can play some games. But hey, it's, you know, it's working. It's still big, but it's working. Kalima. 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 So, now then, we have the Gateway 2000 Super Tower back in working condition. Saying it was upgraded may be an understatement considering it was basically gutted and had most of the parts replaced. Gone is the original 486 setup it's shipped with, but instead we have a very nice machine for late DOS and early Windows 95 gaming. I honestly love this particular time period because a computer built around a faster Pentium or K6 chip is an excellent choice. All your later DOS titles will run very well, and with some select upgrades, 3D games could run great as well. So at least for the moment, we have what I'd call a typical setup for a favorite computer that's been upgraded to keep up with the times. That's all well and good, but let's check out some of those games. Caesar 2 is, as the name implies, the second game in the amazingly addictive City Builder series. Carefully planning your Roman city just never gets old. I'd say I prefer the third in the series over this, but that's not to say it's a bad game at all. Meticulously plan your infrastructure, your production, and the happiness of your citizens, and be rewarded with a thriving city. The kind of game where the hours just melt away. Pushing the K6 chip to the limit, the Screamer series is a favorite for high-performance DOS game testing. Using pure software rendering here, our machine puts up a valiant display and the game runs quite well. You can get lost in this game pretty quickly, and it oozes arcade racing quality that you normally associate with consoles for the time. A bit of a treat of a game, and one that's always fun to fire up, although I'm pretty terrible at it. The flight simulator Star Wars games we were treated to back in the mid-90s were something else. Here we have X-Wing in the form of the collector's edition on CD-ROM. An enhanced version with extra flair, all afforded by the, for the time, nearly unlimited storage space. At least coming off floppies. Strap into the cockpit of your favorite Rebel assault fighter craft and go take down some Imperial oppressors. Good hunting, pilot. Die by the Sword is an interesting game. While it looks like a Tomb Raider style game, it has an incredibly unique control scheme where the numpad can be used to direct the exact way your sword swings. It's really hard to get a hang of, but if you can master it, you're treated to the sort of depth we weren't used to from our action games for the era. We're running in software mode here at a modest resolution, which our K6 chip can power through just fine. Although it's pretty hard to make out a lot of details.
Ooh, that still hurt.
Now we have done softer mode games so far, but remember I said the Rage 2 Plus can in fact do some 3D acceleration? I mean, it says 3D. I want to use all the Ds I paid for. Die by the Sword in direct 3D mode is not a great experience on this card. While yes, it does run, but it's so sluggish it's nearly unplayable. At least I can blame my poor swordsmanship on the game performance this time. It's neat, but a far cry from what you want from a 3D accelerated game for the time. Let's throw the poor video card a bone, shall we? Did you know that there was a proprietary API similar to Glide for some ATI cards? It was called SIF, and not many games got support for it. However, here in Tomb Raider, one patch is actually really good. I'm not sure I'd say it keeps pace with a Voodoo card, but if I had played this back then, I would have been more than happy. We have a decent frame rate, texture filtering, and a good overall experience. It gives us a small glimpse into maybe what could have been had we seen more support for the SIF API. Alright, we've seen a smattering of games putting the machines through its paces. However, while it's fun to want to push the envelope, where a later Socket 7 computer really sings is for DOS gaming. That's where it's the happiest, and many of the games you might otherwise see struggle on a lower Pentium or even 46, here they run very well, and it makes for a fantastic time. Even though our lowly Vibra sound card lacks some bells and whistles, it still actually works great in DOS with awesome compatibility. Likewise, our video card that struggles with most 3D acceleration does a fantastic job with these sort of games. That's why I often recommend a higher speed Socket 7 build for the later years of DOS gaming. It just runs so well, making it one of my favorite kind of machines to have. A true classic. But that's going to do it for this gateway for today. I'm very happy to have gotten this machine instead of it getting recycled. The tower is again just an absolute unit, but also it's a nice slice of nostalgia. Many home computers probably saw similar upgrades where their owners tried to extend their usable life for just a little longer. Our gateway likely served its purpose but can now be given a new life as a time capsule, looking back at that fantastic mid-90s PC gaming time period. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you might like some of the other ones I've made as well. I cover a wide range of topics including retro computers, old games, and a lot of other things. You can find me on social media, on my website, and be sure to catch me live at 8:45 PM Central on Thursdays. Until next time.